Now, as I mentioned, I was assaulted over the Smithsonian, and then so I lost that job, and I was out of work for 2.5 months. Had to borrow money from family, and my family was livid and made all kinds of terrible comments about my character. Really angry about, and gave suggestions that were just totally unworkable. And part of the problem too is that my wife has had a great deal of trouble getting a job because of what UVA did to her reputation. I mean, you know, after my wife was threatened with a gun, you know, the Chinese guy's going to bring a gun to work over at MCV years ago, and being physically assaulted in IH, and the strike threats by Frank Tortella over at what do you call it? The research center up there in Silver Spring. The name eludes me at the moment. Walter Reed Research Center, and then being yelled at to the point of hair falling out at UVA, and being cheated out of you know, grant money, doing research you weren't even supposed to be doing at UVA with those crooks, and Teresa Sullivan, the pinnacle hypocrite. I mean, no publications, no salary, getting fired in retaliation, no unemployment, and the cover-up all the way out to Bill Howell. Yeah, it's just too much. So she's unfortunately not been able to help out, and she's looked at jobs out of state, and I just said, well, you know, what is research all about? You're going to go some crazy place and then have the same thing happen again, then we end up in the street. So anyway, we've been in a bind on a lot of things about this, and it's just inexcusable. How is it somebody with a PhD and somebody, I have international business experience. I lived and worked in Japan. I speak, read, and write Japanese. I can switch, and mada nihongo de hanaseru. Kono biryū wa hotondo zenbu nihongo de dekimasu. You know, I could do certain parts of it in Japanese if I needed to. Anyway, 20 years I haven't used Japanese, but whatever. So the next job I got was a hire in late March of 2014 for the government publishing office, and they told me to come to the USDA to meet a guy named Raphael Samuels. Well, I go down there, I meet with some people, and they said okay, and it looked like I was hired because I had seen one of the guys there who'd been there before years ago when I was at the USDA. So I'm walking down the street, I'm almost back to L'Enfant subway, and here Raphael calls me up and says, come back. So he doesn't bother to show up for the interview. And see, this is the way he does things. At Anadarko, it's just, why they haven't fired him is just beyond the pale, and why the U.S. government puts up with people like him is just unbelievable. So I go back, and he says, I want you to write some sort of little explanation of what you know about migrations. And now here's what's going on, a little background on USDA. USDA has the RD, FSA, and SRC, Natural Resources, NRSC. And they have an IT section that's been there forever and a day, and it just recycles people mostly. It recycles contractors. I think they probably had 4 or 5 in the last 10 years. So my speculation, and I can't prove this, but my speculation is that things got so desperate there after going through more and more contractors, that they finally just went to the easy one, which is if you have, say for example, like me, a white contractor, I'm at the bottom, and then you have the minorities and the 8As, the women owned, and veterans and things of that nature. But when you get to the top, the quickest people who get contracts in the government are the American Indians. They are, from what I've been told from 2 different people, I may be wrong, but they have the what do you call it, no bid status. So I think that's how Anadarko got that contract over the USDA. And that's how desperate things are, I believe, because it's completely mismanaged, and it's a hotbed of racism. The USDA is really terrible. So they got the GPO was going along doing a changeover from regular Office to Office 365, and they said, oh my goodness, now we got to stop this, and we got to swap out 800 machines from XP to Windows 7 32-bit in-place migration maybe. So Raphael supposedly writes up these instructions. Well, I'm jump ahead. So still at the interview on that day, he tells me to go home and telling everybody to write this explanation of what you know about migrations. So this was for the technician's job. I go home. I get home, it's like 4 o'clock by this time, so I get home about 6 o'clock. By 7 o'clock, I wrote out 5 pages, formatted everything, and explained what a migration is, because I'd done 9 or 10 already. And when they made the job offer, they said, you're the tech lead. So, okay, now I'm supposed to have 10 people under me. So starting around April 1st of 2014, we were supposed to have 10 people on deck. Anadarko didn't have it ready. And the GPO wasn't ready either, because first day was like late March. Erica Wade was hired to come in to be the project manager. Victoria Edgerton and Erica and I go all in, and there's the brass of the GPO, the IT section sitting there, all the way to the top, OCI director and everything. And so the first thing I noticed, they give me a statement of work. A statement of work, as I read through it, the first time I got it, not earlier, just right there on the spot, that minute, I'm reading through and it says all the migration instructions, the how-tos, the checklist, and the customer list are supposed to be provided by the GPO. They're supposed to have it ready, day one. So we didn't have to do anything, it was just manage the project. They didn't know what they were doing. They didn't have anything ready. They were a complete blank, and after about 10 minutes, Victoria and Erica slipped out intentionally and left me with the lions. And so they look at my face and say, well, what do you got? And it's like, I was so shocked at that moment. I said, what have I got? I mean, what am I doing? Now, I like the GPO people, and that's why I'm not mentioning their names. I like them personally. They are technically savvy, and they are decent people to work with, and I just like them. And that's the end of that. But from a contract point of view, the GPO violated my statement of work. And it was not my responsibility to be anywhere near any of this stuff. In fact, I rode home one day with a COTR, who was working for the Pentagon, and she said, as far as your involvement, you as the tech lead are not supposed to be anywhere near those meetings whatsoever, period. Whether it's the planning or the later on, as I'm going to come to in a minute. That's the job of the project manager, and I'm going to come to that as well in just a minute. So then, next few days then, you know, I guess I'm kind of stupid about things. I want to see things succeed, so I pour myself out and I start to explain to them how to do the migration and saying, are you going to upload, you're going to back up through easy transfer to the network? Do you have enough bandwidth on your backbone here? Or are you going to use thumb drives or hard drives? How are you going to get their data off if you can do an in-place migration? You're going to take the data off, wipe the machine, and then put the data back. You get one chance to get it right, and where are you going to put the data? So we hashed out the details, and finally one day one of the guys I was having a side conversation with one of the GPO employees, and he says, well, if we lose any data, it's going to be your fault. And I said, so in the next meeting I said, I'm being told that if I lose the data, it's all my fault. And I said, that's not going to happen. So then when I said that, that seemed to have also an effect to the point of saying, okay, we discussed other matters, like why is it I'm writing all this stuff and doing this stuff here? The statement of work says it's just y'all's job. So then the last third of the writing and the preparation, they took care of it and got things ready, and then we went ahead and started doing some test runs. So now that's by this time, it's about the second week. We're doing a couple here and there, but we're already behind because we're supposed to be doing 20 per day. So the second week, middle second week, here come the GPO police up to our office. And they escort 2 of my guys off-site. We had 6 on deck in the second week. I'm not doing any hiring. They're still trying to hire people. And what is Erica doing? Who knows? One guy had a felony weed conviction. The other guy, who had a Muslim background, had 12 felony indictments against him, and one of them was to blow up a federal building because Anadarko didn't do a background check before hiring the guy, and they just said, oh, we'll just let the GPO do it and we'll bring him on site. That's Anadarko. That's your American Indian contracting company that it's tied with the BNSI or whatever that is. That tribe has got relationships somehow or other, from what I've seen on the internet, with the Alaskan group up there. All of you guys are in the hoots on this one. Great day in the morning. So anyway, now things are whacked, and GPO was livid at me. I was like, no, I don't have anything to do with that mess. So Erica says, well, we'll just go off-site. You know, now we have to do the interviews off-site and have to keep people off-site until the background check is cleared by the GPO, and then they come on and work with us. And she says, we'll start doing this interviews. I said, no, I'm going to do the interviews, because by this time now, I just about have a finished product with a checklist and do this, and the migration had been dumbed down to about 3 pages of here's one for this customer, go through and check every box, do everything it says, and come back. So as I was doing the interview, There were people with top security clearances, CCIs, CCNAs, all kinds of certifications, way overqualified for a $25 job that was going to last until the end of May of 2014, 2-month job. And it was do or die. It just had to be done. It was off-site, go away once this is done. So I did the interviews, and I told him, I said, I don't need you to bring in your full force of your skills here. This is all you're going to get. This is all I want you to do. What do you say? Go or no go? And they said, okay. So we brought on board, just to be straightforward with them, so they wouldn't be disappointed or angry once they came in and said, what in the world is this? So eventually, I was fully staffed the 4th week of April. And the OCIO director was in one of those late stage meetings. He came in to see what the status was, and he seemed, upset. And I caught him in the hallway after the meeting. I said, let me tell you something. I've been in enough migrations that I can tell you that we can ramp this up. We can do more than 20 per day easily. And I've run the numbers, and I can tell you that assuming you all can provide the list properly, we will finish on time, and we'll get everything done. And I give you my word. So to cut the point straight, I ended up having to I had to fire a guy because he went down and wasn't doing migrations. He was sitting in a hallway texting, and I had to do his migrations. I was out on the floor every day managing the folks. The people underneath me did excellent work. They were really a joy to work with, and it's fascinating to see all the talent in so many different flavors. It's fascinating to watch people, what they can do for you, when you ask them. And I made sure that when they did great things, that I told the GPO management, I said, these things are getting done because this person did this over here, and this one did such and such like that. We had some very good people. No, not some, all of them, except for Erica. Erica's a very nice person, but from multiple sources, I had heard that she had been hired as a project manager over the post office and was a post office employee, to the best of my knowledge. She comes over here and tells them she's got some personal issue, and so she's taking time off from the post office. And in fact, over the post office, they had bounced her off of any kind of project management and made her deliver the mail. So she comes over to manage a technical project, a migration of 800 units in 2 months, with no technical skills whatsoever. And so every single day in the meetings, I answered for Anadarko and the entire project as the tech lead. I asked for a raise. They refused to give me a raise. They said, this is just part of your thing. I said, no, it's not. It's not inside my statement of work. It's not a part of my assignment. You're screwing me. That's what Anadarko does to people. They screw the people, and they're vicious about it. So if you think these little, references and stuff you might see on the ladders or somewhere about Anadarko, be careful. Go work somewhere else. It's a terrible company. The president ought to be ashamed of himself. He ought to resign. It's ridiculous. So we get down to the end of the around May, and they start giving interviews over at USDA with Raphael Samuels to get a job over there. So I said, well, I got to be over at a certain place to pick up my ride home at like 5:30, so I can't do a 5 to 6 interview. That's too late. So how about a 4 to 5? So on my calendar, I was sent a notice on Outlook. They agreed to a 4 to 5, and so I went over there, and because I was still managing the project, this was late May, maybe around the 15th of May or so. So because I'm still managing the project, I got to keep things rolling, because we're right there. We're surging, making good numbers every single day. And so I was down in front of the Energy Building, just about at Independence and the USDA, and I called Raphael and I said, I'm going to be there in a few minutes. I'm still walking. So I got on site at 4:05. The interview was a 1-hour interview from 4 to 5. Raphael Samuel showed up to my interview at 4:53. He comes in and says, how you doing? I said, how do you think I'm doing? You're 53 minutes for my interview. And then he takes me downstairs in the basement, a place where I worked before, where there is sewage gas coming out in a computer room that's been there for years at the EPA, and nobody else investigates. Nobody. That's a scandal by itself. So I I go down that room, I said, I'm not working down this hole again. I'm not doing imaging. I was the manager. I was the project manager for this over here. Erica Wade didn't do anything. In fact, the deputy CIO over at GPO, when I was doing the contract, stopped the meeting one day when Erica was out in late May. She was out searching for a job in Reston or Herndon somewhere, Virginia. So she's out for the whole day. I'm now managing the project by myself, which is, again, totally outside of my scope of responsibilities. And the deputy CIO is in the meeting, and she said, stop the meeting right now, and says, tell me what exactly Erica's doing. And of course, I just let it slide. I said, I don't know. But what I know she's doing is she's not running the project. We all knew in the room what was going on. It was no mystery of the universe in there. So then after that, the deputy calls me to her office and tells me, saying this, we, being the GPO brass of the IT section, are very impressed with your work. And we have a lot of work coming up. Well, it never materialized. And for sure, Anadarko put their foot on my throat to keep me from going to work for the GPO as a full-time employee, because they figured, ooh, we got some hot potato, we can use him. Yeah, used me all right and put me in the basement over at USDA imaging machines. It's like, no. I have just about finished bringing a project back from death, from so much hard work, working outside of my responsibilities, and you're going to give me this? No. But yet they took one of my subordinates and gave her a job at Tier 2 at the USDA. Now, I ended up sitting at home for a solid month with no work. In fact, it was actually more like 5 weeks, and yet Victoria had the audacity to call my phone and ask me, who else do you think on that crew would be worth hiring over here at the USDA? All the while, well, we might be working out something for you. I say, who do you think you're talking to? This is Victoria. This is how vicious they are at Anadarko. This is the way they use people there. So eventually I got hired at the USDA in the GPO section. But I was never compensated for that month off. I was never compensated for doing Erica's job because she didn't do squat. I managed that project. I got no bonus. I got nothing out of that entire thing. And so, as far as I'm concerned, Anadarko, on the GPO contract, you owe me, and so does AM Agency. Either one of you can step up to the plate, because I saved that project. And by the way, people who are watching this video, we finished the project 2 days early. It was only some residual extra couple things they wanted done that they added on at the tack end, and we stayed, a couple of us, 2 or 3 of us stayed into early June. They had some extra things they found for us. They said, well, by the way, kind of things. But we exhausted their list 2 days before it was due. And the reason I can tell you this is because we sent 3 of our guys out to Beltsville to do some work out there, and they were doing their thing, and Victoria calls up and says, okay, you need to get rid of 3 people. And so we sent them out to Beltsville, and we had to fire them off-site while they're just like that. Good people, good, solid individuals. Really excellent workers, excellent character, strong technical skills, just fantastic people. But this is the way Anadarko does to people. And then Anadarko wants to talk to me while I'm sitting at home and ask, which of these people here that you've already fired should I hire back after you treat them like dirt? And people will say, oh, well, you see, that's the trouble with DC. It's inside the Beltway. It's the federal government. It's government work. It's government contracting. No, it's not. This is what's wrong with the United States. This crap is going on all over the place. You have these little worms over here that have a psychology degree or a history degree at some little temp agency that don't know anything about what they're doing. They're just using people. You're nothing more than chattel. You go out and pay the money for your certifications, and you go out and do all the extra work and stuff that they don't put in the contracts and stuff like that, and work you to death, and they dare you to complain. Yeah. So that's the GPO contract, and I'm going to make more videos on this subject if I have to until Anadarko pays me what they owe me, because that was inexcusable. That everybody knows, the GPO people know that it was my work that saved that contract right there, by my efforts, by organizational skills, managing the people, the hiring, the actual doing the work some days myself, actual doing the migrations because the people not coming to work, so a couple of people had, there was one person in particular had a heart of gold. She One of my employees, she had to take care of family members and had to come in late some days and had very difficult times, and so I would start migrations and then she would stay late in the day. She would still do her quota every single day. Just great people all around. So anyway, Anadarko, you owe me, and it's going to get straightened out, I can tell you that right now.